A guy has fallen for a girl, but he has no idea she is a blood-sucking vampire, and in future he is going to become her blood bank. By the way, will you date a vampire hottie? The movie starts with a chilling scene where a woman named Riya is drinking the blood of an old man. It turns out that Riya is actually a vampire. Next, we meet Thomas, an aspiring sketch artist. His work is excellent, but unfortunately, no one appreciates his art. Meanwhile, we also see Thomas's mother, who is dating a pest controller named John. Thomas doesn't like John at all, and to be honest, his mother doesn't seem to like him much either. One night, Thomas heads to his friend Dani's bar, where he lays eyes on Riya for the first time. He falls in love with her instantly. Riya is dancing inside the bar, and eventually, she comes up to Thomas. She speaks to him in Romanian, saying that she feels his pain. Then she suddenly leaves, and Thomas also heads home to sleep. The next morning, Thomas wakes up to find John in his house. He hates his presence and decides to visit Dani. While there, he asks Dani about Riya. Dani tells him that Riya doesn't have a phone and doesn't seem to have any family either. Later, Thomas's mother tells him that John wants to talk to him over dinner. During dinner, John drops a bombshell. He tells Thomas that he will no longer live at home, but in an apartment away from the house. Thomas is furious, but there is nothing he can do about it. The next morning, John takes Thomas to an apartment in the city and even gives him some money. Later that night, after buying groceries, Thomas notices a beggar sitting outside the store. He offers him a drink and, in doing so, notices bite marks on the man's hand. The beggar tells Thomas that they drain people dry, drinking their blood without anyone realizing it. Thomas dismisses him, thinking he is just some crazy old man. Then, Thomas gets a call from Dani, who excitedly tells him that Riya has come to the bar. Without wasting any time, Thomas rushes there. He sees Riya, but quickly realizes she is with another man. Feeling embarrassed, he leaves and heads back to his apartment. As Thomas is about to enter his house, Riya suddenly appears. He invites her inside, and as soon as they step in, the lights go out. When Thomas turns them back on, he sees Riya lying on his bed. Shocked but excited, Thomas composes himself. However, nothing happens between them. They simply fall asleep. In the middle of the night, Thomas wakes up to find Riya drinking blood from his arm. Horrified, he rushes to the bathroom and locks himself inside. Riya calmly tells him that his bite marks will heal quickly, which they do. She then asks Thomas to take her number, and he agrees. After that, she leaves and Thomas falls asleep. The next morning, Thomas fears that he has turned into a vampire and will burn in the sunlight. However, nothing happens to him. At night, he visits the grocery store again, and the cashier mentions something about blood draining. This confirms that vampires are common in the city and that people are aware of their existence. As the day goes on, Thomas starts feeling strange. He experiences withdrawal symptoms, just like a drug addict. He realizes that having his blood drained by Riya has created a strong craving inside him. Desperate, he calls Riya's house, but a woman answers instead. He asks her to tell Riya to call him back. That night, Thomas has a nightmare where he shows his bite marks to the beggar. The beggar tells him that he has become addicted to the vampire's feeding. Suddenly, the beggar turns into a vampire and attacks Thomas. But just then, Thomas wakes up. It was all a bad dream. Soon after, Riya calls Thomas, and he immediately invites her over. It is clear that Riya only sees Thomas as a convenient blood bank, but Thomas has fallen deeply in love with her. That night, they sleep together again, and in the morning, Thomas checks his body for bite marks but finds nothing. He starts to believe that Riya might actually love him. However, this illusion is quickly shattered when Riya visits him again and tells him she is hungry. She drinks his blood once more. Thomas is surprised to learn that Riya isn't affected by sunlight or silver. When he mentions that vampires aren't supposed to go out in the sun, Riya laughs and tells him he watches too many movies. Riya reveals that she loses control on full moon nights. She also explains how she became a vampire, by eating the heart of another vampire. After drinking his blood, Riya takes Thomas out for a meal, trying to replenish what she has taken. But it is clear that she is only doing this so she can continue feeding on him later. As they walk back, Riya mentions that she has to return home to her old man. It turns out she is referring to the same old man from the beginning of the movie, the one she was drinking blood from. This old man is Riya's full-blooded vampire lover, and she herself is much older than she looks. After a few days, Thomas attends a job interview but fails to get the job. On his way home by train, he notices a couple. The girl has bite marks on her arm, meaning that vampires are everywhere, and people willingly offer their blood like an addiction. The movie cleverly uses vampires as a metaphor for addiction. At home, Thomas feels the overwhelming urge for blood draining again. He calls Riya and invites her over. Every night, Riya drinks his blood while Thomas enjoys the process. But his health starts deteriorating. He loses weight, always feels exhausted, and looks sickly. One day, as Riya prepares to leave to see her old man, Thomas stops her and asks her to stay with him instead. They visit the old man's house to collect her belongings. There, we see the old man in a terrible condition, drained and weak. Riya bids him farewell and leaves with Thomas. A few days later, Thomas introduces Riya to his mother and John. They have dinner together, but then something disturbing happens. Thomas's nose starts bleeding and Riya cannot control herself. She starts licking the blood from his hand. Shocked, his mother watches in horror. Embarrassed, Riya rushes outside. Thomas's mother demands to know what's going on, but he tells her to wait and quickly follows Riya. On the rooftop, Riya warns him never to go against her again. Speaking in Romanian, she threatens that if he does, she will separate his head from his body. Then, she disappears into the night. At this moment, Thomas realizes the harsh truth. Riya has never loved him. He was nothing more than a blood source to her. Vampires have learned to coexist with humans, but they still hold immense power over them. Since humans willingly provide them with blood, there is no need to kill. But if necessary, they won't hesitate to do so. Tom had started working at Dani Ho's bar, but his health was declining. He was losing weight rapidly and feeling exhausted all the time. One night, he found Riya in a strange, distressed state. When she regained consciousness, she revealed that her old man had been killed. However, she coldly told Tom that she did not love him and walked away, leaving him heartbroken. Later, Tom refused to give blood to Riya and spoke poorly about the old man. This enraged Riya, who revealed her terrifying vampire side, forcing Tom to step back. She stormed out, leaving their relationship even more fractured. One night, Riya was seen flirting with a new guy at Dani Ho's bar. Tom, unable to control his jealousy, confronted the guy and started a fight. Riya immediately clarified that Tom was nothing but her blood bank, not her boyfriend. Angered by her words, Tom punched the guy, knocking him to the ground. Afterward, doctors diagnosed Tom with anemia and high blood pressure, explaining his deteriorating health. His mother, worried sick, brought him back home to recover. Meanwhile, the full moon was approaching, and Riya was losing control of herself. One night, Tom, overwhelmed with emotions and anger, drank heavily and blasted music at full volume. John, frustrated by the noise, asked for a bottle of wine, but Tom refused. As John tried to snatch it from him, Tom ended up vomiting on him before passing out. The next morning, John left in disgust. As Tom recovered, John kept visiting his apartment. However, one night, Riya attacked John and killed him. When Tom went to check on his friend, he was horrified to find John's lifeless body. Outside the apartment, Riya was waiting. She lunged at Tom, carrying him into the air before biting his neck. Tom, however, fought back, and she threw him down in frustration. Terrified, Tom rushed home and frantically told his mother that Riya was a vampire. His mother, of course, didn't believe him. Suddenly, Riya appeared, violently breaking the windows. Tom's mother quickly called the police before trying to confront Riya herself. But Riya, using her powers, invaded Tom's mind and inflicted immense pain on him. As his mother tried to stop her, Riya grabbed her and threw her from the balcony, killing her instantly. Moments later, the police arrived. In desperation, Tom told them the truth, that Riya was a vampire. But unsurprisingly, the officers assumed he had lost his mind and sent him to a mental institution. Even inside the institution, Riya continued tormenting Tom, manipulating his thoughts and pushing him closer to the edge. Eventually, Tom contacted Dani and begged the doctors to sedate him to escape Riya's influence. One day, police officers visited Tom with shocking news. They were releasing him. They admitted that there was no evidence tying him to the murders, and they knew he wasn't responsible. Instead, they were aware that Riya was the real killer. However, after the other officer left, the remaining cop warned Tom to drop the vampire story, because he himself was a vampire too. Now free, Tom went home, but the grief of his mother's death consumed him. Overwhelmed, he picked up a knife and contemplated ending his life. But then something changed. Instead of harming himself, he grabbed the knife and made his way to Riya's house, determined to put an end to everything. The police officers followed him. Inside, Tom found Riya drinking Dani's blood. Dani lay unconscious, helpless against the vampire's attack. Seeing Tom with a knife, Riya didn't resist. Instead, she looked at him and asked him to kill her. She confessed that she loved him, but didn't want to end up like the old man she had once loved. Tearfully, she told him, "I love you, Tom. Please, set me free." As the SWAT team stormed the house, they found Dani barely alive, and Riya dead. But the shocking part, her heart had been ripped out. The person responsible? Tom. And just like how Riya had once turned into a vampire by eating a human heart, Tom had done the same. The transformation was complete. As the SWAT team ordered Tom to surrender, he revealed his monstrous vampire form. In a sudden burst of power, he shattered a window and escaped, flying into the night sky. Outside, the vampire officer and his partner witnessed the whole thing. Then, just like in the beginning, the same mysterious beggar reappeared. He looked at the officers and smirked, saying, "Well, another one has joined our kind." In the final scene, Tom was seen flying across the sky. He had finally become what Riya was. He had wanted power, but now he was left with nothing but regret. He had all the time in the world to think about everything, and yet it was too late to change anything. And with that, the dread came to an end. If you like this movie, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel.